Yeah.
Instead of having 4 inches, you have 2 inches.
Sure.
And everybody wants more inches. So,
All right. Hi guys, I'm Callie.
And I'm Cole.
And welcome back to another episode of Doodie Calls.
What is this, episode 5 or 6?
5?
Okay.
6?
All right. I know last one was 2 parts, kind of, so. All right. Well, we are back.
Finally.
We had a little hiatus there between work and the holidays and personal stuff and
lots of things going on.
Lots of stuff going on there. But we are back, and we're here to talk about, what are we talking about today?
Well, what not to flush, like what's okay, what's not okay, do's and don'ts of having a septic system, things like that.
Yeah, and I was thinking, we were talking about this, what not to flush is one part of maintaining and caring for your septic system. It's obviously not the only thing, but it is a very important thing because it plays such a prominent role in the day-to-day usage and functions of the system.
Absolutely.
So we're not going to make this like multiple parts, but this is we're going to kind of carry on with the theme of, maintaining septic systems. How do we, what's recommended, what's not recommended, how you can, as a homeowner, if you have one, how you can maintain your system on a regular basis. And then also, talk about maybe what we offer in terms of maintenance plans and, scheduling and things like that. So, what we really want to do with this kind of, I'm going to call it a series, would be, just provide value with how to better care for a septic system because, like we were talking about, maintenance is important because if you don't maintain your septic system the way that it's supposed to be or as often as it needs to be, bad things can happen. Basically, your toilets can stop flushing. You can have sewage running out in the yard or in your basement or in your house or in your drain, backing up out of your drains. So bad things can happen.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you really don't want to wait to maintain your system, and you don't want to wait for something to happen before you go ahead and take care of it.
Yeah,
be a little
proactive about it. Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked a little bit, like you don't change the oil in your car after your engine blows up, Yeah. So, and you've mentioned that before.
Yeah, and like your engine blowing up, if your system is backing up, there can be times or situations where pumping the tank is the immediate, I don't want to call it a solution, but it'll at least restore operation to the system for a period of time. But I know we've had several situations where, people haven't pumped their tank for 20, 30 years and it backs up, we go out, we pump it out, it restores the functions of the system, but then they're having problems again, 2-3 weeks later.
Right.
And those problems could be recurring every 2 to 3 weeks. And so it's either continue pumping the tank every few weeks or, actually address the issue and you're looking at a more extensive fix, usually it's going to require excavation and it usually is going to cost a lot more, to replace the tank or replace the field or, do sewer line repair work and things like that. So that's why the maintenance is important. If you don't do it now, you're going to have to do something in the future. And it's at that point, it's really not an if, but it's a when. We can't really tell you exactly how long the system's going to last without doing any maintenance. You might get a couple years, but you might get, 10 or 20 years. It just kind of depends. But at some point, the systems have a finite lifespan. What that is depends on a lot of factors, but they do have a lifespan. And once you reach the end of that lifespan, then you're going to have to look at a replacement or major repair. And that lifespan can be extended by performing the maintenance on the system that's needed. So with that, what's the do we just want to go down a list of what not to flush?
Sure.
All right, start it off.
You don't want to flush any grease, any food particles, any coffee grounds, which is something I actually didn't think of, but nothing like that, especially if you have a garbage disposal. We don't say that you can't use it, just be kind of, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Cautious or conservative with the usage of the disposal.
But that wasn't right.
Frugal. Close. Yeah, food waste and grease is probably the most common thing that we see cause problems with systems. Whether that's we're getting calls because people can't flush, or it's gotten into the drain field and it's gurgling, or something's going on. Grease and food waste is honestly probably the most common thing that we see that causes issues. Um, as after grease, I would say would be toilet paper actually. Using
Yeah,
too much.
or too much toilet paper in those wipes,
Wipes,
especially.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Any kind of fabric or kind of a fabric material. So I mean, I call them wet wipes, sanitary wipes, disposable wipes.
I mean, even though they
They have a
say
lot of
they're
names.
flushable, some even say septic safe. I don't recommend it.
Yeah. So
they're definitely not.
yeah, yeah. So touching, let's go back just a second for
Okay.
on the grease and the food
Sure.
waste, because that can be a little bit confusing. Obviously, if you have grease, like if you cook bacon, right, in a pan, you don't want to wash the pan with the grease in it in your
Right.
sink or in your dishwasher. What we'd recommend is scraping that grease off, or wiping it up in a paper towel, or draining it the majority, as much as you can get at least, off that pan and throwing it in the trash can.
Right. Yeah.
As far as food waste, if you have some food left over on your plate, don't, even if you have a garbage disposal, we recommend not putting that in the sink or down the garbage disposal. Scrape that off in the trash can, and just doing that will go a long way. You don't have to completely wipe off your plates or
Right.
everything every time before you wash them,
Yeah.
after you use them. But just getting the majority, the bulk of the grease of the food waste, putting that in the trash can, not sending it down the drain, that's going to go a long ways towards keeping the pipes clean, keeping the tank, keeping grease out of the tank, which then will keep it out of the drain field.
Right.
So, and then if grease and food waste and those kinds of particles, so food waste, solid food waste doesn't break down in a septic tank environment nearly as well as human waste does. It's a different bacterial process. It's a different environment that's going to break down food waste. It really needs more more aerobic bacteria, which a conventional system is an anaerobic environment, and so it's not going to break down nearly as well. And what that'll do is that'll result in a more rapid, or it'll increase the solids in the tank quicker, which will result in you having to pump the tank more often. Which is why, to counter that, if you have a garbage disposal and you need a new tank, or you're building a new house, they make you increase the size of the tank before it even goes in the ground. So as far as food waste, that's really the reasons why, and what we'd recommend to do to help keep those pipes clean and keep the stuff out of the drain field and out of the tank. Then going to toilet paper and wipes now. Overusing toilet paper, what we've seen, results in a increased scum layer buildup or crust layer buildup, which is the stuff that floats on top of the tank. So when you first open the lid, that's typically what you see.
Yes.
So if you use too much toilet paper, it kind of turns into like this pulpy material inside the tank, and then it's going to float to the surface. And if that crust layer, that scum layer, gets too thick, it can actually prevent water from coming into the tank or going out of the tank.
Okay.
At least it'll slow it down. And that obviously can cause problems. If water can't get in the tank, then it's not going to, you're not flushing, basically.
Right.
So, excuse me. So that's the main thing. And then the wipes, they don't break down inside of a septic tank. They say flushable, but, which is true.
Yeah,
They'll flush.
They'll flush. Some I've noticed even said septic safe.
Yeah.
And I don't agree.
Yeah. I would just say that they're not. I would just say don't. If you use them, put them in the trash can. Do not flush them down the toilet, because they're
not gonna break down.
They're not gonna break down. Yeah. And even if you're not on a septic system, I've seen several like cities and municipalities. They're even asking people not to flush wipes or anything of the sort.
Right.
Because even municipal lift stations, they have big grinder pumps in there, but enough wipes can still stop up those pumps, and that can cause problems for the city as well. So, or they can cause issues at the wastewater treatment plant. So they're especially bad in septic systems, but really they're bad everywhere.
Yeah.
So don't flush them down the drain. Even though they say flushable, they'll flush, but they won't decompose, and they can cause a lot of problems for everyone else involved or in the future. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what's next on the list?
Another thing, you don't want to flush down any medications, a lot of chemicals.
Yeah.
You know, we know that people like to have everything fresh and clean, but you don't want to overload it. There's this video I saw.
Yes.
And they used,
I think it was Facebook or Instagram or something. Yeah,
like
it was crazy.
50 different things.
They were trying to clean a toilet, right?
Yeah. Like
it was clean.
Liquids, powders, all of this other stuff. Like
I'm sure it got clean,
do that. Like septic systems have bacteria in them, like good bacteria, and if you put things like a lot of bleach or whatever cleaning products, it'll affect that, which will affect your system and how it operates.
It definitely can, yeah. So as you introduce new wastewater into a system, you're introducing new bacteria in that wastewater.
Right.
That bacteria is designed to live and thrive in a septic system. And so what that does is the bacteria break down the solids in the wastewater as they enter that system, as they come to or get into the tank. Mm-hmm. And if you kill off all those bacteria, then those solids won't break down. And what you'll do is you'll result in... So septic tanks have 3 defined layers. A good, well-functioning system has 3 layers. Mm-hmm. You have your scum or your crust layer on top. You have a clear zone, and then you have your settled sludge or your sludge layer at the bottom. And if the bacteria are all dead because of harsh chemicals or antibacterial soaps, things like that, overusing those things, not just a little bit won't hurt it, but overusing those kinds of chemicals, you'll kill off that bacteria. There won't be any clear zone. So that clear zone is the water that goes to your drain field.
Yes.
And that's what gets absorbed by the soil. If there's a lot of solids in there, though, as we've talked about before, that'll clog up the soil and your drain field will eventually stop working. So limited quantities of, bleach, things like antibacterial soaps, those aren't going to necessarily hurt the system in any kind of capacity, but overusing those chemicals or putting in inorganic caustic, paints, thinners, automotive fluids, oils, antifreezes, things like that, or like you said, heavy medications, stuff like that. Those can kill off that bacteria in really in any quantity. So make sure that if you have those kinds of liquids, you're disposing of them properly. And then the things that you can use, like bleach, antibacterial soaps, just use those in limited quantities. Kind of be conservative with them. So there's another thing. Speaking of soaps, we've seen it. So grease, when it gets into a line, it solidifies and it gets this, it's like a really smushy, kind of soft, flaky, powdery substance, right?
Sure.
But it's really hard to remove. Okay,
yes.
And it can cause problems. It closes off the inside of the line, and then instead of having 4 inches, you have 2 inches, and everybody wants more inches. So,
all right.
I had to. I'm sorry. So, speaking of soaps, the powdered detergents, laundry detergents or dishwashing detergents, a lot of times those won't dissolve fully in the water. So inside your washing machine or inside your dishwasher, they won't dissolve fully. And we have seen if it's not grease, we have actually opened tanks that smell like soap. They smell like a laundry machine.
Well, what do you recommend for that then?
Liquid detergents.
Okay.
So the powdered detergents, they don't always break down as well, and then they can actually, you're still sending those little particles down. Over time, those can accumulate. They can either be held in a line or inside the tank, and that can cause problems. So because you're adding more solids to the line. So if at all possible, we recommend using liquid detergents when it comes to like dishwashing and clothes washers and things like that, and laundry. Liquid detergents are better for septic systems than powdered detergents or solid detergents.
Something to jump off of that, we see that a lot of people have like water softeners.
Yes.
And things like that, and we don't recommend running that line or the softener line straight to your septic system.
Correct. Yes. So water softeners, sump pumps if you're in a basement or crawl space or whatever, floor drains, downspouts off of gutters, and also any excess water, really condensate pumps from your HVAC unit, things like that. Those all should be redirected into a separate discharge line away from the septic system, preferably even like the opposite side of the house or building. So we see it a lot. Back in 2019, I think we had a record year of rain.
Yeah.
It was just nonstop there. I think we got like 30 inches, which is our annual average in the first 2 or 3 or 4 months of the year. So we got a ton of rain, and we had a lot of people with sump pumps that were connected to the septic system line. The basement's flooded out, and it was pumping all that water into the septic system. The septic system was already completely saturated because the ground was so wet.
Right. There was no place for any
There
of
was
that
no
water
place
to
for
go.
any of that water to go, and a lot of people were burning up sump pumps. They were burning up, they couldn't flush otherwise because the system was so full. I remember we pulled like 10,000 gallons out of a 1,000-gallon septic tank.
Oh, wow.
At one house. It was crazy. And that was one of the things that they had still connected was the sump pump. And so we really encourage, sump pumps, water softeners, gutters, downspouts, things like that. Direct those away from the septic system and make sure they're not tied into that line that goes to the tank. As far as, because we do have also kind of in conjunction with that, as far as showers, dishwashers, laundry machines, sinks, things like that. Gray water, toilets would be black water. Everything else technically would be gray water. Though the showers, the sinks, your washer and laundry machine, dishwasher, laundry machine, those things, they do need to be tied into the septic system. Those are required in probably just about everywhere. I know they are here in Kansas, but I would say just about everywhere in the nation, they are required to be tied into the septic system. And in reality, you're not really saving much on the system because those are accounted for when you size the system, those things. But sump pumps, like you said, water softeners, things like that, those are not accounted for in the size of a standard conventional septic system. So those should be routed separately. And that is okay to do, at least here in Kansas. So that is okay, and we do recommend that.
Another recommendation we have, you don't want to overload your system.
No.
So you don't want to be doing your dishes and running your laundry, like your laundry machine and taking a shower all at the same time. You kind of want to space those things out. I know we've talked about a couple times you don't really want to do all of your laundry in one day, especially if you have multiple loads. Just to kind of space that out as well.
So, and there's math behind that, right?
Sure.
There's math behind that. So a 1,000-gallon tank is designed to treat up to 500 gallons of water per day. The reason that is 500, and the reason why it's half of the tank capacity, is because you want at least an additional 24-hour retention period. That's what allows that bacteria that's in the tank to work, break apart or break down those solids so that you're getting clean, clear effluent going out to your drain field. So 500 gallons per day. All right, but then that needs to be broken down to 24 hours.
Okay.
So you don't want to put more, what's 500 divided by 24?
I don't know, you're the one good at math.
About 25?
Sure.
Right? 25 times 25. I'm just going to Google it. Or not Google it,
Google
but
it.
calculator.
Calculator.
500 divided by 24, 20.83 gallons. So 21 gallons an hour. All right, so you really don't want to put in that system more than 21 gallons per hour.
Okay.
So you want to space your water usage out as much as possible. Showers can use anywhere from 10 to 25 gallons of water. Limit your shower usage. Or most households, I should say, on average, if you put a water meter with a timer on it, or if you track flow per hour, you're going to have a peak or spike of water usage in the mornings between, we'll say, 6 and 8 a.m. Then you're not going to have a whole lot during the day. Then you're going to have a spike from, we'll say, 5 or 6 to about 10 p.m., right? And then there's nothing for that approximately 12 hours overnight.
Sure.
Or 8 to 12 hours overnight. Yeah. So, and then on weekends, it's sporadic all over the place. We would recommend spacing that water usage out. Maybe instead of doing laundry in the evening when you're already home and you're doing dishes and you're taking showers and, doing that kind of stuff, run your laundry, start it in the morning after you leave, let it run, maybe swap it out at lunchtime if you come home over the lunch hour, if you're out working or whatever, and then, run that second load. That's spacing that out instead of putting even more water from that 6 to 10 o'clock at night period. I know a lot of people, they do laundry and that kind of and dishes and stuff, or do more laundry and more dishes over the weekend. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but making those spikes putting too much water at one time can cause a loading issue with the system. You can flood out, you can saturate the soil. That soil has to have a recovery time where it's not getting water. And systems on average, I'd say, last about 20 years or so, and most people do kind of what we described, or at least close to what we described just now. So it's not necessarily going to hurt the system to do that, because you might still get, about 20 years out of it, but it would be better, and you're going to get more lifespan out of the system if you do take into consideration your water usage on a daily and hourly basis and space it out as much as possible.
So, what was it that you said last week? If it doesn't...
Yeah, so are we wrapping up the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
Well, there's two more things.
Sure.
Feminine products, we see a lot of those.
Yes, you don't want to flush those. I mean, at the end of the day, they're meant to absorb, so they don't break down.
Yes. Put those in a trash can. How do I say this? Party balloons. Party balloons. We find some tanks with a lot of party balloons in them. Those should also go in the trash can. They don't break down, they float. We've actually seen those in systems, to kind of reiterate and touch on the point of using too much water at one time. All right. So that stuff and the scum layer, everything that's built up there. So your fats, oils, greases, your wipes, your toilet paper, your party balloons, things like that. Everything that's floating on the surface of the tank. All right. Say you run 3 loads of laundry, you shower, and you're doing the dishes at the same time, and you get a quick spurt in about an hour's time of 100 gallons of water. All right, 5 times the maximum that you should be putting down within that hour. What's going to happen inside that tank is the water level rises. All right, it could rise above the deflector or the top of the baffle.
Okay.
If you don't have a filter in your baffle, that stuff can escape the tank and go out to the drain field. And those are the kinds of things that they're not going to break down. They're going to clog the effluent line leaving the tank. They may not even make it to the field, but they're going to clog the PVC that's leaving the tank, or they get into your drain field. They're small enough, they get into the soil and they block up the soil, they block up the lines, or they block up the chambers or whatever. So that's one reason why not using that amount of water at one time, and also not flushing the things that aren't going to break down or shouldn't be in a septic tank. That's why both of those are important. So, and then to wrap up the video, on a previous take, if it doesn't come out of you and it's not toilet paper, it shouldn't go down the drain. And that's kind of the main synopsis of it. So if it doesn't come out of you, it's not toilet paper, don't flush it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So.
So what do we have coming up next week? We will be here next week.
At least, if not, maybe 2 this week. I don't know.
Hopefully, we don't plan on taking another hiatus like that.
No.
So, what do you think for next week?
I think probably talk a little bit more about what I don't want to say requirements, but what annual maintenance on a septic system should consist of at a minimum, kind of at a baseline standard. I think we should focus mostly on just conventional septic systems. That's what we see the most around here. There are other requirements for different kinds of systems, alternative systems, ATUs, things like that. But for conventional systems, I think we could kind of dive a little bit more into what you can do as a homeowner, or what you can contract out with a reputable contractor or service provider to perform for you on a regular annual basis, or even more frequently, and why that's important, what kind of benefits it's going to offer, things like that. So I think that'll be the next topic, and then maybe switch back over to the portable side. So
okay.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again next week.